For centuries, civilizations across the world have told tales of magnificent, fire-breathing creatures, dragons. Some were fierce and terrifying, guarding hidden treasures in dark caves. Others were wise and powerful, worshipped as celestial beings. But here's the real question. Could dragons have actually existed? What if these weren't just stories, but distorted memories of real creatures from the past? Could ancient people have seen something and mistaken it for a dragon? Today, we're diving deep into history, mythology, and science to uncover the truth. Were dragons just a product of human imagination, or is there more to these legends than we ever realized? Dragons. They appear in the myths of nearly every ancient civilization, yet their descriptions vary across cultures. How is it that people from different parts of the world, who had no contact with each other, ended up creating such similar stories? Coincidence, or something deeper? Let's start with China, where dragons are seen as celestial beings. Unlike the fire-breathing monsters of Western folklore, Chinese dragons are wise, noble, and often associated with rain and prosperity. Ancient emperors even claimed to be descendants of dragons, using their mythical power as a symbol of divine rule. But here's what's fascinating. Chinese dragons don't have wings, yet they are often depicted soaring through the sky. Could this be an exaggerated memory of a real creature, something long forgotten by history? Now, shift your focus to Europe, where dragons take on a very different role. Here they are massive, winged beasts, hoarding treasures, destroying villages and breathing fire. Legends tell of knights battling these monstrous reptiles, from St. George in England to Siegfried in Norse mythology. But why would European cultures paint dragons as villains while China saw them as protectors? Some historians believe these legends may have originated from real encounters with large predators, like crocodiles or massive serpents, exaggerated over time into fire-breathing monsters. And then there's Mesoamerica. The Aztecs worshipped Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god. Unlike the dragons of Europe and Asia, Quetzalcoatl had vibrant feathers, a snake-like body, and was seen as a creator deity. What's strange is that South America had no records of large reptiles resembling dragons. So where did this idea come from? Some researchers suggest it could have been inspired by fossilized remains of prehistoric creatures, leading ancient civilizations to believe they were the remains of gods. Even in India, dragons take on a unique form. The mythical Nagas, half-human, half-serpent beings, are found in Hindu and Buddhist traditions. Sometimes they are protectors, sometimes they are dangerous, echoing the conflicting dragon stories from around the world. Could these myths have been influenced by real creatures, like massive pythons or crocodiles? One of the most intriguing theories is that ancient people discovered dinosaur fossils and, with no knowledge of paleontology, interpreted them as the remains of dragons. Imagine being a villager in ancient times, stumbling upon a massive skull with sharp teeth. Wouldn't you assume it belonged to a monstrous creature? Could that be how the legend of dragons began? And then there's the fire-breathing element. No known animal can spew fire, yet this detail exists across multiple cultures. Some scientists suggest it could be inspired by real-life creatures like the bombardier beetle, which sprays hot chemicals as a defense mechanism. If a tiny insect can do that, is it possible an ancient reptile had a similar ability, something we've yet to uncover? So, what do you think? Are dragons purely myth, or do they have roots in something real? Maybe, just maybe, these stories are echoes of a forgotten past, waiting to be rediscovered. So, were dragons real, or were they just the product of imagination, fear, and storytelling? Science has a few fascinating explanations, some of which might make you rethink what you believe about these mythical beasts. Let's start with one of the most logical theories: fossil misinterpretation. Imagine living thousands of years ago, before modern science existed. You're walking through the mountains and suddenly stumble upon a massive skull, jaw lined with razor-sharp teeth, eye sockets hollow and menacing. With no knowledge of dinosaurs, what would you think? To ancient civilizations, these fossilized remains could have easily been seen as proof of dragons. In fact, historians believe that the skulls of Protoceratops, a dinosaur found in Central Asia, might have inspired the dragon legends of China and Mongolia. Similarly, the discovery of large prehistoric bones in Europe may have given rise to the fire-breathing monsters of Western folklore. But what about real, living creatures that resemble dragons? Look no further than the Komodo dragon. This massive lizard, native to Indonesia, can grow up to 10 feet long and has a deadly bite filled with venomous bacteria. It's one of the most fearsome predators on the planet, and if you saw one hundreds of years ago, wouldn't you assume it was a dragon? And then there's flight. Many dragons in mythology are depicted with huge wings, soaring through the skies. Could this be a distorted memory of prehistoric flying reptiles like the pterosaurs? These creatures ruled the skies millions of years ago, and their fossilized remains could have fueled dragon myths. Even today, we have creatures like the Draco lizard, which glides between trees using wing-like flaps. While it's tiny compared to legendary dragons, its ability to fly might have been exaggerated into myth over time. But here's the biggest mystery of all: fire breathing. No known animal today can breathe fire, but what if something in the past could? Some scientists speculate that ancient people might have seen creatures with unique biological defense mechanisms and misunderstood them. Take the bombardier beetle, for example. This tiny insect can shoot boiling hot, chemical-laced liquid from its body to deter predators. If a tiny bug can do this, could a larger reptile from the past have evolved a similar defense? Some even believe that certain prehistoric creatures might have had gas-filled chambers in their bodies, similar to how some animals produce methane, which, under the right conditions, could have ignited, creating the illusion of fire breathing. And finally, let's consider one last possibility. What if dragons were real, just not in the way we imagine? What if the legends we hear today are simply exaggerated memories of creatures that actually roamed the earth? Maybe they weren't the gigantic fire-breathing monsters of fantasy, but smaller, more realistic versions that inspired awe and fear in ancient humans. In the end, whether dragons were real or not, one thing is certain: the myths surrounding them are deeply rooted in our history, science, and imagination. And who knows, maybe somewhere, deep in the unexplored corners of the world, a creature still exists that could make us believe in dragons once again. Dragons may have started as myths, but their legend has never faded. In fact, they are more alive today than ever before. Not in the real world, but in our stories, movies, books, and even video games. From the fire-breathing beasts of medieval Europe to the wise and mystical serpents of the East, dragons have evolved into one of the most recognizable and beloved creatures in human history. Think about it. When you hear the word dragon, what comes to mind? Maybe it's Smaug from The Hobbit, hoarding treasure deep within a mountain, or perhaps it's Drogon from Game of Thrones, soaring through the skies, raining fire upon enemies. These creatures, once born from ancient folklore, have been transformed into larger-than-life characters, each with its own unique personality and purpose in modern storytelling. But why do dragons continue to captivate us? Why, out of all mythical creatures, have they remained so deeply embedded in our culture? One reason could be their versatility. Dragons can be terrifying monsters, noble guardians, or even symbols of wisdom and power. In Harry Potter, for example, dragons are fearsome creatures that challenge wizards in dangerous tournaments. Meanwhile, in movies like How to Train Your Dragon, they are misunderstood companions, waiting to befriend those brave enough to look beyond their fearsome exterior. This adaptability makes dragons timeless, able to fit into any story, any setting, and any imagination. But dragons don't just exist in fiction. Their influence has shaped art, architecture, and even technology. Have you ever noticed how many products, businesses, and sports teams use dragon imagery in their logos? That's because dragons symbolize strength, dominance, and mystery. In China, the dragon remains a powerful symbol of good fortune and prosperity, appearing in festivals, celebrations, and even the Chinese zodiac. Meanwhile, in Western cultures, dragons continue to be a source of adventure and excitement, from theme park rides to blockbuster films. Even in the gaming world, dragons reign supreme. From the epic battles in the Elder Scrolls, Skyrim to the legendary Pokemon like Charizard, these creatures continue to spark the imagination of millions. They represent the ultimate challenge, the unbeatable force that players must conquer. And let's be honest, who doesn't feel a rush of excitement when they encounter a dragon in a video game? But could our fascination with dragons go beyond storytelling? Some scientists and futurists have speculated that genetic engineering could one day bring dragon-like creatures to life. With advancements in DNA editing and cloning, could we modify existing reptiles to resemble the mythical beasts we've only seen in movies? It sounds like science fiction, but so did many of today's technologies just a few decades ago. If humans can resurrect extinct species, who's to say we won't one day create our own real-life dragon? So, what do you think? Are dragons simply fantasy, or do they represent something deeper, a universal symbol of power, mystery, and the unknown? One thing is certain. Whether in ancient legends or modern entertainment, dragons are here to stay, and as long as we keep imagining them, they will continue to soar through the skies of our stories forever. So, were dragons ever real? Maybe not in the way we imagine them today, with massive wings and fire-breathing powers. But history, science, and mythology all point to something fascinating. Dragons may not have been just fantasy, but rather an echo of real creatures that once roamed the earth. Maybe they were inspired by the fossils of long-extinct dinosaurs, the terrifying Komodo dragon, or even the strange and mysterious creatures lurking in the deep sea, waiting to be discovered. Or perhaps the legends are more than just stories. Perhaps ancient civilizations really did see something, something that has been lost to time. A creature so magnificent, so powerful, that its memory refused to fade, living on in myths, art, and stories passed down through generations.